7!
Hi, I'm Chris Marland.
And I'm Matt Hancock, and welcome to Playing Devil's Advocate,
The show where we look at movies and ask, how bad was it really?
The Matrix is a 1999 film by the Wachowski siblings, set in a dystopian future where humanity is imprisoned by a race of sentient machines.
With its interesting and sophisticated concept, it was a revolution for science fiction genre. It was the first science fiction film I saw where I realised this genre didn't have to be all fantasy. It could intertwine with reality. I now see The Matrix as a rare example of art house and blockbuster coming together as one.
To keep the imprisoned humans under control, the minds are trapped in the Matrix, a recreation of early 2000s Earth. However, some humans have managed to escape the Matrix and re-enter it to wage war against the machines and their villainous agents. Fortunately, they have access to superpowers by hacking into the Matrix's code, giving rise to some of the most influential fight scenes in film history.
The original was both hugely successful and inspirational to an entire generation of filmmakers, as well as spawning countless spoofs and parodies.
At the end of the first film, the main character, Neo, discovered his destiny as the One, allowing him to further manipulate the Matrix and making him a crucial element in the war against the machines.
A sequel was highly anticipated and released in 2003 under the title Matrix Reloaded. In 2003, both Part 2 and 3 of the Matrix trilogy were released, entitled Matrix Reloaded and Matrix Revolutions. Both received a mixed response from fans, especially the latter. The flaws with Matrix Revolutions are more visible, but arguably, Reloaded is less flawed.
But how bad is it really? Well, let's jack in and find out. Oh god, nobody said jacking in would be this painful! So our film begins with a motorcycle exploding a security checkpoint. Well, at least it doesn't waste time getting to the action.
This is Trinity, played by Carrie-Anne Moss, reprising her role from the first film. We cut to her jumping out of a window and shooting an agent. The big bad security programs within the Matrix, but unfortunately, she dies.
As it turns out, this was only a dream by our protagonist Neo, played by Keanu Reeves. And don't worry, this dream becomes a plot point later.
We then cut to the crew's captain, Morpheus, played by Lawrence Fishburne, and Link, played by Harold Perry.
Quite nice to settle in.
Wrong movie!
Link,
Yes, sir.
I must ask you to do one thing.
What's that, sir?
It's dangerous to go alone. Take this.
The team enters the Matrix to join a meeting of the different captains that make up the Resistance. They discuss an upcoming machine attack, which threatens to wipe out the last human city, Zion.
But the agents attack, leading Neo to re-establish himself as the One, giving his allies time to escape.
This scene is important from a character standpoint. In the previous film, Neo could barely hold off one agent, but now he's able to take on 3 at once and kick their ass! One thing I have to credit this series on, it has spectacular fight scenes. Everything is shot in focus with slick, fast martial arts choreography. Compare this with any action flick and weep tears of pure awesome!
After clearing the first stage, Neo flies into the air, which is probably the Matrix equivalent of fast travel.
The team return to Zion, surrounded in glorious early CG. At least the designs have enough detail and sport such cool designs that I can look past the outdated effects.
I find the Zion scenes to be the only sections of the film where character is shown. You also see the characters experiencing problems, and philosophy takes a backseat. These are also scenes where the characters interact in a way that it presents them as three-dimensional. In Zion, we see Morpheus taking a more powerful role as a leader. We learn that he has a past relationship with Niobe, who is now with Commander Locke, which creates tension between the two characters, and we see romance between Neo and Trinity. It's obvious the directors wanted to go deeper into this world, even though I did feel I was merging into a different film completely.
Walking around Zion, Neo finds himself surrounded in Jesus metaphors. But at least in The Matrix, these references aren't subtext and are actually critical to his character development. Now, it's easy to overlook this very overused comparison. At least here, it's true to the character of Jesus and doesn't feel slapped on like in Man of Steel.
Morpheus reveals to the people of Zion that the machine army approaches the city. But how they react? A rave, of course!
This scene drags a little, and for some reason it's intercut with scenes of Neo and Trinity in bed, or on slab. If this scene has some symbolism, I don't see it.
I know this scene may seem out of place for a Matrix film, but I honestly think it works and believe it's relevant. It's the people of Zion enjoying every last moment with their loved ones before the war between human and machines begin. It's also a good chance for the audience to view the differences between the real world and the Matrix. It presents liberty. They aren't under any illusion, and what they see, touch, and hear is all real. I feel that's why they put so much emphasis on the couples groping each other. The music by Fluey also fits perfectly with the scene. If I do have any little criticism, it would be this scene here. When you have a scene that includes two characters having sexual intercourse, you have to make it look like they are. Keanu Reeves and Carrie-Anne Moss both look bored out of their minds. This is probably the first time they've been alone in a long time, and they don't seem to be that overwhelmed by it. The previous scene in the lift looked more believable than this. From their faces, you can tell what they are thinking. Ugh, I knew we should have stayed at that party.
My toes have nails. Meanwhile, a pair of resistance fighters attempt to escape the Matrix, but one is corrupted by Smith, played by Hugo Weaving. Smith was an agent in the first film and was the most prominent antagonist. But following his defeat by Neo in the film's climax, Smith becomes a virus, corrupting programs in the Matrix and spreading his influence. In computer terms, this is essentially an antivirus program becoming a virus itself. This elevates him as a threat from the first film and will lead to more awesomeness later. For now, he settles for consuming a resistance fighter named Bane, allowing him to enter the real world.
But for now, Neo talks with a member of the Zion High Council.
This conversation touches on the idea of control, leading to the film's overlying themes of fate versus choice, and whether we're really in control of our lives. While this is strictly theological, the Matrix itself helps create an environment where such themes are given a practical form and application. What do I mean by that pretentious garbage? Keep watching.
Neo enters the Matrix to speak with the all-knowing program called the Oracle. But first, he must fight Sarah?
Quite nice to settle in.
Go away, David! The Oracle's guardian.
I have to be sure. Of what? That you are the one. Could have just asked. No, you do not truly know someone until you fight them.
Professor, is beating me up part of the lesson?
After passing the test, Neo meets with the Oracle, who tells him to reach the mainframe. She also brings up the existence of other programs. This adds a new dimension to the film's mythos, creating the idea of these constructs born of the Matrix, and that they have their own personality and opinions. Some of them have broken free of their programming, and have abused their abilities within the system, become a faction all of their own, neither with the humans or the machines.
What I really like about this film is the mythology. The first film did an excellent job of introducing the Matrix to its audience, but what this film does is dig deeper into the world. It's the second layer of the onion. Not only are the mythologies interesting, but they connect to our reality. When the Oracle explains to Neo that old programs that refuse to be deleted come back as ghosts, and the stories people hear about there being sights of aliens and ghosts, I find that a clever way of intertwining the myths of the Matrix with myths from the reality. It creates a new concept completely. The use of reality in this mythology makes us as an audience feel more connected to the film and not feel alienated.
But Smith shows up to start, and let's be honest here, the coolest fight scene in the movie. This scene is awesome! As the fight continues, more and more Smiths swarm the arena, becoming more and more intense. What this film does, which many neglect, is that for the most part, the scene is live-action fighting, saving CG effects for the stuff that they can't do live. That is until they get to the pole combat, where this starts to look like a video game. An awesome video game, but still pretty outdated effects. It all just looks so unnatural, like they're a bunch of CG monkeys. However, if you're honest with yourself, you found this scene badass back in 2003. You know, before standards.
Let me talk about why this scene is awesome in the simplest terms. Neo plus Smith times a shitload of Smiths equals one hell of an exciting, jaw-dropping, eye-popping, fantastic set piece. Squared. I'm not joking either. This is one of the greatest fight sequences I've ever seen in modern cinema. Everything on the screen is perfect to me. The slick choreography, the fighting, the music all gel so well together. The camera work is also brilliant. If there is one thing that aggravates me when a fight scene is being shown, is when it uses fast editing and bad camera angles so you can hardly see what's going on. Here the camera swoops around the fighting and gives you a clear shot of what is happening. It's choreographed at such a fast pace that you're grateful when they use slow motion, so you can absorb everything that is happening. Watching it now, you can tell some of the necessary sections of the scene are CGI, but you find yourself not caring at all. The fact that most of this is done with real actors is impressive, especially for a film made over 10 years ago.
Following Neo's escape from the High Elf Elrond, our heroes meet with a program called the Merovingian, who is holding another program known as the Keymaker prisoner. Neo needs this guy to help him break into the mainframe.
He explains how they do not question why they are seeking the Keymaker. They have just obeyed an order. Then explains how in the Matrix choice is nothing but an illusion between those with power and those without, and that the only thing that exists is causality. This is one of the more simple philosophical scenes to understand, but it's one of the more dull, stretched out speeches of the film as well. It's a good expansion on what the Oracle said to Neo early on, where he had to question why he makes a certain choice. However, it goes on for longer than it necessarily needs to. The theory could have been explained in 2 simple sentences.
You are here because you were sent here. You were told to come here and then you obeyed.
I don't understand why he has to show an example. Do the writers think we really don't fully grasp his logic? It's not even the best example to use, as it includes an arguable flaw. He states that choice doesn't exist, and uses a woman who has been given a cake he has created as an example. Didn't she technically choose to eat the cake? But we do learn that he can create cakes that can make women orgasm. Where can I get that recipe? Who's with me?
Me. It's the first time in the film where the philosophies feel long-winded and annoying. This dude just seems to ramble, making very little sense. Fortunately, our heroes are just annoyed by this waste of time as we are, and leave empty-handed. But fortunately, the Merovingian's wife helps out.
So sick and tired of his bullshit. On and on.
Wait, he was supposed to be annoying? Hate to break it to you guys, but intentionally annoying is still fucking annoying.
The Merovingian discovers that he has been betrayed by his wife. How does he react? Like how every other Frenchman would, of course.
I fart in your general direction. Your mother was a hamster, and your father smelt of elderberries.
How about the lipstick you're still wearing?
Lipstick? Lipstick? What craziness are you talking about, woman? There is no lipstick.
She wasn't kissing your face, my love.
No, not really, but wouldn't that be awesome?
Reggie McBrick's interception leads to another kick-ass fight scene. Now, there have been a lot of fight scenes in this film, but at least they all have variety. Here we have multiple weapons and multiple fighting styles, as the fighters involved continuously switch weapons, keeping the flow going without it getting stale. There's so much variety in this scene alone.
When it comes to the action, you can tell the choreographers have used all their blood and sweat to make each action sequence stand out and not make them similar. With this sequence, there are different characters against Neo, and each one has a different style of combat. They include weapons such as swords, ninja daggers, spears, and shields in this scene, so it isn't just a hand-to-hand combat, like the previous scene was.
Morpheus, Trinity, and the Keymaker escape into a car park, followed by the twins, a pair of albino knife-wielding ghost programs. More awesome fight scenes follow! This leads to a kick-ass car chase, one which again constantly changes the dynamic of the scene. They dodge traffic, while the ghost ends up in the car, leading to a close quarters fight. Then agents show up, jumping between cars and dodging gunfire at close range, followed by Trinity getting onto a motorcycle and a passing flatbread, and finishing off with a fistfight on top of a speeding truck!
Are you okay?
Yeah, sorry. Awesomeness overload.
Do you want me to do it? Okay, just hang on. This leads to a car chase on the freeway with gun and fist fights, followed by a motorcycle chase, followed by a fight between Morpheus and an agent on top of a lorry with a samurai sword, and... Oh my god!
It's awesome, right?
I know! Why do people hate this film? I'm sure people will agree with me when I say this has to be in the top 10 best chase sequence to ever be shown on screen. It's everything you want and more. When you feel that the scene is beginning to drag, something else emerges that makes you wish the sequence could go on for another half an hour. It's a genius and incredibly choreographed chase sequence that you will never forget once you've witnessed it. It's funny to think that the amazing sequence doesn't include the film's main protagonist. But that's what makes me appreciate this scene more. It allows Morpheus and Trinity to have some of the spotlight, especially Morpheus. This makes me realise how skillful he actually is in combat.
And how awesome he looks with a katana.
But of course, all set pieces must come to an end at some point, and yeah, Neo comes to save the day.
Yay! Following their escape, our heroes attempt to break into the mainframe with the Keymaker's help.
The siege requires 2 other teams to attack the separate power systems in order to shut down the security protecting the mainframe.
Throughout the film, Neo's been having flashes of Trinity's death, which is what the opening sequence is all about.
He has said stay behind for her safety, but after one of the teams is taken out, Trinity is forced into action, bringing Neo's premonitions to reality.
Neo manages to get inside the mainframe, though the Keymaker is shot in the process.
Within the core of the Matrix, Neo meets the Architect, the man who created the system.
He reveals that Neo is just the latest in a long cycle. Within the core, he is given the same choice as his predecessors. Choose several people still plugged into the Matrix to repopulate Zion after it's destroyed by the Machine Army. However, he's also given the choice to leave, giving him the chance to save Trinity's life, but doom both Zion and the future of mankind's freedom.
This is a scene where it will be difficult to fully grasp everything that is being said in one viewing. But once you have fully absorbed everything that is being said, you just see how well thought out the story of the film is. Though it is a scene where you cannot afford to be distracted, it is a very good way of expanding the concept of the Matrix. The Architect couldn't allow the population of Zion to grow, as there'd be a more positive chance there'll be an uprising, leading to a revolution. This is a scene where I feel that reality is parallel with it. Throughout history, society has seen a number of small people come together to create a rebellion and form a revolution, and those they are up against try to demolish them. But I'm not going to go further into that.
I, on the other hand, will. This is where the concept of fate comes into play. Not only is Neo's path being set, but it's part of a cycle that's been repeated. No matter what they do, the characters are playing out according to what fate has determined, leading to a recurring line from the Oracle.
Because you didn't come here to make the choice. You've already made it.
But that doesn't mean that free will has no consequence. Whilst in this incarnation of Neo has experienced love, he's able to break the cycle, apparently dooming mankind, sure, but that's where the idea of hope comes in. Throughout the film, Neo's presence creates the hope for the people, giving them a sense that although everything points to their doom, that Neo can be the one to break the chain. And so, Neo has broken the cycle. But this means that he now has a chance to end it once and for all, and people believe in him enough to help despite their own fears.
So Neo saves Trinity while posing for the cover for the video game, and manages to resuscitate her.
But ultimately, the heroes have failed to stop the war. And with their ship destroyed, Morpheus, the constant source of faith, finally finds his conviction tested.
The crew is followed by the machines, but fortunately, Neo's power has spread to the point where he can affect the machines in the real world. However, he passes out soon afterwards.
So with the Resistance first line of defense crushed off screen, Smith lying unconscious next to Neo, who is locked in a coma, and the Machine Army fast approaching, we're all set for our third and final installment of the franchise. But at least we know that Doc is safe in 1885.
So, that was The Matrix Reloaded. And what did we think?
Reloaded is a fantastic follow-up to the original Matrix film. It expanded on the established universe while providing a decent variety of creative fight sequences. The philosophy of fate versus free will works well with the established story, building on themes of faith and hope which revolve around Neo's presence. Its annoying moments tend to be short and far in between, so they don't feel all that distracting. I do think they use most of their good ideas with this film, however, which I'll be happy to expand upon when we look at Revelations. And yes, I am going to be defending that one. Overall, a great film that I recommend you to give a second chance if you're one of the many critics.
The Matrix Reloaded for me is an underrated film. Though it isn't another step in science fiction's journey through cinema, it still has a strong story with interesting philosophies. Some of the film's subplots are forgotten about, but they return in the third installment. This doesn't fall under the category of sequels that were made in order to make a big portion of money. It's clear that time and effort has been put into this film, and they wanted to be as captivating as the original. I do feel that once our main characters are in the Matrix, they are forgotten about, and there is more emphasis on the philosophy and action. However, there is development in Neo's character as he discovers more about his purpose as a One. Though I wish there were more scenes with Smith, I still found every single shot with him to be pure gold. As an audience member, I didn't feel as part of the film as I did with the first film, but that is probably because it focuses a lot on Zion. However, that is the director showing its audience an expansion of the film's universe, and shows that there is much more to explore in this story. The set pieces are just beautiful to watch. When you look at how big they really are, you start to question how much preparation had to be put into this. The choreographer for this film had a hard time creating these scenes, but it definitely paid off. Some of the special effects look dated now, but I feel that it wasn't overused. I'm never going to fully understand the reason why so many fans hated this movie. Was it the style? Was it the way it was written? The plot? The more action sequence included? The less focus on character? I don't know. It's not a perfect film, but it's above average, and is a worthy sequel.
On that note, I guess it's time to wrap this up. Join us next time for... What was that?
Matt?
Where am I? Do I have fingers? Hello, Matthew. We have much to discuss.
Bring in Neo's premonitions.
Premonitions?
Premonitions.
Premonitions.
Premonitions. What?
Why not acetylene?
What?
I can actually pronounce it. I've heard that many times.
What? Premonitions.
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 Premonitions. Why am I can't spell that? He has to stay behind for her safety. But after one of the teams is taken out, Trinity is forced into action, bringing Neo's premonitions to reality.
It's a premonition.
Bro, fuck off! Why couldn't I not say that?
Premonitions.
Premonitions.
Just go from bringing the...
Premonitions. Trinity is forced into action.